Okay, so today we're going to look at some runtime analysis. We're going to code trace our way through a loop and see if we can find some shortcuts on determining how many times a loop iterates through a block of code. So let's start with a simple for loop. So we're going to start with int count is equal to 3, and let's compare that count to 7. So we want count to be less than 7, and then we'll increment our count by ones. Okay, so system.out.println, and we'll just output a star followed by a space. So before we run this code, let's just code trace our way through it for a moment. So when we begin, count is 3, and 3 is less than 7, so it's going to output 1 star. Okay, next time we go through, count's incremented now to 4, and we've printed a second star. Then we increment, count is now 5. We're going to print a third star. We increment again, count is now 6. We print a fourth star. We increment to 7, but 7 is not less than 7. So count is no longer meeting this criteria, so we do not iterate a fifth time. So this is going to output 4 stars, and its execution, it's going to iterate through this block of code for inside our for loop 4 times. Okay, so let's go ahead and test that out. And there we see our 4 stars. So this is the shortcut now that we're going to see how that processes. So the number of times a loop executes, we take the largest minus the smallest value and add 1. Okay, to find the largest value, right, we look to see, is this an equals with the operator, or is it not equal to? Since this is a not equal to, right, then our largest value is going to be that maximum, that limit, minus 1. So our largest value is 6. Okay, we take that largest value minus the smallest value, which was 3. 6 minus 3 is 3, plus 1, and that's 4. And we can see that that does match our output for the 4 stars that we got. Okay, so let's change this up a little bit. Let's make this a less than equal to. We'll change our count to start at 0. Let's make this be 5 this time. And before we run it, go ahead and pause the video, code trace your way through, see how many stars get output, see how that compares to calculating the analysis using the largest minus the smallest value plus 1. Okay, so if you take your largest value, your limit, because we have an equals with our operator here, that's going to be a 5. 5 minus our smallest value, which is 0, is 5, plus 1 is 6. So we should get 6 stars when we run this code. And there they are, our 6 stars, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's a way that you can do some runtime analysis, see how many times something's going to print out or occur inside of your loop based on your starting and limit values. Okay, now to this, we can add what happens when we have a nested loop. So the number of times a nested loop body is executed is the number of times the outer loop runs multiplied by the number of times the inner loop runs. Okay, so we've got an outer loop here. We'll change count to rows. And that makes this, whoops, that makes this one rows. And then this one will also be rows. Okay, and then we'll make ourselves an inner loop for columns. And let's start our columns at 3, and we'll make columns less than 8, increment columns by 1. And now we'll move our print statement here to be inside of the inner loop. And we're going to change that from a print line to a print. And then we're going to put a print line after our inner loop finishes running. Okay, there we go. So let's do some runtime analysis and think about what this would mean for iterating through these nested loops. So our outer loop is still the same, right? We had 5 minus 0 plus 1 is 6. So the outer loop is going to run 6 times. The inner loop, we don't have an equals here. So this is a 7 minus 3, which is 4, plus 1 is 5. Okay, then when we multiply 6 times 5, that's going to be 30 total executions for the nested loop. So let's go ahead and run. Okay, and here we've got 5 columns with 6 rows, right? That means that this line 16, which printed a single star, that happened 30 times. Okay, now all of the loops that we've looked at have been rectangular loops so far, but not all loops need to be rectangular. So for instance, if we start our rows at 1 and we'll go up to 6, and then our columns, right, we're also going to start at 1, but we're going to stop when our rows are greater than or equal to the columns. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this time. And you see we get a triangle output instead of the rectangle that we had before. Right, so go ahead and pause the video and code trace your way through this so that you can understand why this is happening, right? Why we're getting a triangular shape as opposed to a rectangular shape, and how many times now is this print statement in line 16 occurring. Okay, so if you resume the video, let's talk through this. So the first time that we go through our for loop, there's 1 row and 1 column. Row is 1, column is 1. 1 is less than or equal to 1, so we output 1 star. And then we're going to come down to the next row, and this time the rows is 2, but columns is 1, right? So we output the first star, then we have 2, 2, then we go to the next, right? Then we've got 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, and then 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, and so on. So our total number of times that we're going to iterate through this loop is going to be the 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is 21 iterations of this nested loop. Okay, so if we take a look at the formula for that, it's going to be n times n plus 1, all divided by 2. And if we look at that in the context of this nested loop that we're considering beneath it. Okay, our n, the number of times that the outer loop is going to run. Okay, that's 6 minus 1, which is 5, plus 1 gets us back to 6. And then in our formula, that would be 6 times 6 plus 1, and that's 6 times 7, which is 42, divided by 2 is 21, and there we've got 21 stars. So we can use this formula whenever we have a nested loop that is non-rectangular in order to shortcut that runtime analysis. So this is the number of times the inner loop runs in a non-rectangular nested loop is this formula, where the n is number of times the outer loop runs, or the maximum number of times the inner loop runs.